Welcome to Whoyelling Now, Season 6, Episode 9, titled Addicted to Witnessing. Copyright Mackenzie. For entertainment purposes only. I am your host, Olga Foreign. There was a time when a witness had to be there. You had to stand in the room, stand on the sidewalk, hear the scream, see the punch, watch the car leave. You had to actually witness something. Now, you can witness the entire world before breakfast, a war from your bed, a beating while drinking your coffee, someone's marriage falling apart while you're sitting on the toilet, a child crying, a woman screaming, a man dying. Scroll. Someone dancing. Scroll. A puppy. Scroll. Another body. And somewhere along the way, witnessing became something we do all day. We witness each other's meals, vacation, children, arguments, breakup, arrests, mistakes, crimes, death. We have become so accustomed to having an audience that sometimes an experience doesn't even complete until somebody else has seen it. But something else happened. We didn't just become addicted to being witnessed. We became addicted to witnessing. And I'm starting to wonder what all this watching is doing to us. Because when we witness something online, we don't always just watch. We investigate. We accuse. We defend. We blame. We punish. Sometimes millions of us watch the same 30-second video and reach a verdict before the people actually responsible for determining what happened have even entered a courtroom. Then the courtroom does something strange. It tells us that's not enough. And we become furious. What do you mean that's not enough? I saw it. We all saw it. We watched it over and over and over again. But apparently, a picture can be worth 1,000 words and still not tell the entire story. A video can be worth 1,000,000 words and still not prove what the law requires it to prove. Which leaves us with a very uncomfortable question. What happens when what society believes it witnessed and what a court can establish are two different things? But there's another part of this that bothers me even more. How much have we witnessed? Think about it. How many people have you watched get punched, shot, beaten, dragged, bombed, killed? How many screams have come through that little screen in your hand? And what did you do afterwards? Maybe you were horrified. Maybe you commented. Maybe you shared it. Maybe you watched it twice. And then you scrolled. So, what happens when you finally witness violence standing 10 feet in front of you? Do you recognize it differently now? Have we watched so much brutality that our definition of brutality has changed? Could something once considered horrifying now register somewhere in our minds as, I've seen worse? And if that's happening, what does that mean when one of us becomes an actual witness or a juror? What happens when the legal system asks ordinary people to determine what they saw, what they remember, what they believe, and those ordinary people have spent years consuming extraordinary amounts of human suffering as content? Today, I'm talking with attorney David Thiruselvam because I want to understand what happens when our social world of witnessing collides with legal systems that require something very different from simply saying, I saw it. Because maybe the question isn't whether we're watching too much. Maybe the question is, what is all this watching doing to the way we see? We trust our eyes. Maybe too much. Because once I've seen something, it becomes very difficult to convince me that I don't understand what happened. But seeing gives us something else besides information. It gives us feelings. And sometimes those feelings begin demanding a verdict. Here's a poem I called, I Saw What I Saw. I saw what I saw. You can't tell me what I saw. I saw it with my own two eyes. And I felt what I felt when I saw what I saw. You can't tell me how I felt when I saw what I saw. I demand justice based on what I saw. I demand punishment based on what I saw. Because I need justice. I need punishment. I need something to make me feel better about what you allowed me to see. You showed it to me again and again and again, and I watched again and again and again. So don't tell me now that what I saw isn't enough. Don't tell me there are questions. Don't tell me there are laws. Don't tell me there is something else I need to see. I have seen enough. And if you cannot give me justice for what I saw, if you cannot punish someone for what I saw, if you cannot make me feel better after I voted for you because of what I saw, then I don't need to see anymore. Shut it down. Turn it off. Close my eyes and let's all pretend that I did not see what I saw. My dearest listeners, I saw what I saw. But when did you start seeing? That's the problem with so much of what we witness today. Something happens, someone notices, then the phone comes out. Record. What happened during those few seconds before someone decided this moment was worth recording? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. So let me introduce you to Emily, a woman who doesn't have to press record. Her problem is figuring out how to press stop. This story is titled The Human Recorder. Emily didn't take pictures. Not of birthdays, not of sunsets, not of food arranged beautifully on white plates, not even of herself. She owned a phone, of course. Everyone owns a phone. But if you open Emily's photo library, you would find almost nothing there. People found this strange. especially because Emily remembered everything. Not almost everything, everything. Ask Emily about her 7th birthday, and she could tell you there were 16 blue balloons and 16 white ones because one of the white balloons popped before her father finished hanging the decorations. She remembered the sound. She remembered her father saying a word he wasn't supposed to say in front of her. She remembered her mother laughing. She remembered that there were 9 candles on the cake, even though she was only 7 because her mother accidentally brought the wrong package and decided nobody would notice. Emily noticed. Emily always noticed. She remembered the tiny crack running through the yellow plate her grandmother used when she served her pancakes. She remembered that her 1st grade teacher wore the same green sweater on October 11th and November 3rd. She remembered every word of the first argument she heard between her parents, and the second, and the last. That was the problem. People thought having a photographic memory sounded like a gift. Emily thought those people didn't understand forgetting. Forgetting was a mercy she had rarely been given. Most people got to lose things. The faces of someone who hurt them softened around the edges. The exact words of an argument disappeared. The room where someone died eventually became less precise. Not for Emily. Her memories didn't fade. They waited. So while the rest of the world seemed determined to record everything before it disappeared, Emily spent much of her life wishing something would. Her friends would pull out their phones at dinner. "Emily, picture!" "No." "Come on, I'll remember it." They thought she was joking. She wasn't. At the concerts, thousands of glowing screens would rise around her. Emily kept her hands at her side. At weddings, she watched the bride enter the room instead of watching the bride enter someone else's screen. At birthday parties, she watched the children close their eyes before blowing out their candles. People would sometimes ask her, "Don't you want something to remember this by?" Emily would smile. "No, I want something I can forget." Here's the thing about a phone. A phone only begins where a hand decides it begins. Somebody sees a stranger yelling, raises the phone, presses record, and the video starts exactly there. Mid-yell, mid-motion, mid-story, as if the world had no minutes before that one. Nobody records the quiet part. Nobody records the part where the yelling stranger was 40 seconds earlier, standing perfectly still. Nobody records the look that passes between 2 people before either one raised a voice or a fist or a hand. The recording starts when the moment becomes worth recording, which means the recording never has the very thing that would explain the moment. The before is the first thing lost every single time, and it is almost always the part that mattered most. Emily had never once in her whole life missed a before. She didn't decide to watch things from the beginning. She simply couldn't help it. Her attention did not wait for permission, the way a camera waits for a thumb. She was recording in her own way from the moment she opened her eyes each morning until the moment she closed them at night. She just never had to post anything, and she never had anything to post because none of it was for anyone but her. which was exactly why on one particular Tuesday, she would end up being the only witness in the entire city who had actually seen what happened. It happened on a Tuesday, 2:17 in the afternoon. Emily was sitting outside a cafe on the corner of Palmer and 6th, table 7. The table rocked slightly because the front leg was shorter than the others. Her coffee had gone cold. A fly had landed on the rim twice. Across the street, a woman in a red coat stepped out of a pharmacy carrying a small white bag. Emily noticed her because the coat was too heavy for the weather. 78 degrees, no wind. The woman turned left. Emily watched her for no reason at all. The way she watched everyone all the time, whether or not anything was about to happen. That was the part nobody understood. She wasn't waiting for something to happen worth remembering. To Emily, everything was already worth remembering. She simply had no way to turn it off. Then came the sound. Not a gunshot. That was what people would later say. Emily knew it wasn't. The first sound was metal, a sharp metallic crack, then tires, then screaming. Everyone around Emily turned. A black vehicle had stopped crooked across 2 lanes. A man was on the pavement, and almost instantly phones appeared. 1, 2, 3, 7, 11. People stepped off the sidewalks holding their phones in front of their faces. Someone shouted. Someone else yelled for somebody to call the police while continuing to record. A man ran towards the person lying in the street. The woman in the red coat moved backwards. Emily watched her. 1 step, 2 step, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. She stopped. Her left heel struck the curb. She stumbled but didn't fall. Her pharmacy bag slipped from her hand. A prescription bottle rolled underneath a parked blue sedan. Nobody was filming her. Every camera was pointing towards the man in the street. That was the strange arithmetic of a crowd with phones. 11 cameras, all aimed at the loudest thing, all capturing the exact same 6 feet of pavement from 11 slightly different angles. 11 versions of the same jury. Not one of them had turned an inch to the left or the right or backwards to see what the moment had pushed loose everywhere else. Emily looked towards the doorway beside the pharmacy. A man stood there, gray shirt, dark trousers. His right sleeve was rolled slightly higher than his left. He wasn't recording. He wasn't helping. He was watching something across the street. Emily followed his eyes. A delivery driver stood there beside his truck. His left hand was still wrapped around the door handle. His right hand was bleeding. Then Emily noticed something else, something small, something that would later matter very much. She remembered it. Of course, she remembered it. She always remembered the after two, the part that mattered just as much as the before. And that vanished from every recording the second someone's thumb decided the show was over. People stopped filming when the ambulance arrived, or when the crowd thinned, or when their battery dropped below 20%. The after just kept going without them. Emily never once had to decide when a moment ended. It simply didn't. Not for her. It only quieted. By 2:31, the first video was online. By 3, there were several. By dinner, millions of people had seen what had happened. By the next morning, people who had never been to Palmer and 6th were explaining exactly what had occurred there. They slowed down the video, zoomed in, circled people, added arrows, posted theories, argued, accused, defend, condemned. Someone combined 6 different cell phone recordings into one video and titled it, "What Really Happened?" It had 4 million views by morning. Comments arguing about a frame that had never contained the whole picture in the first place. People who hadn't been there watching 11 seconds on a loop became more certain with every replay, as if watching the same 6 feet of pavement 14 times could ever tell them the 9 steps a woman in a red coat took in the opposite direction. Emily watched 11 seconds of it. Then she turned it off. She didn't need to see it again. She was already trying to forget. 7 months later, Emily sat in a courtroom. 14 recordings of the incident had been admitted. 3 security cameras, 11 cell phone videos, 14 before that didn't exist. 14 jurings that agreed with each other almost too perfectly, because they had all been pointed at the same 6 feet of ground. 14 afters that cut off the moment a phone battery died, or a thumb got tired, or an ambulance finally blocked the shot. The attorney approached her. "Miss Emily, you witnessed the incident on Palmer and 6th. "Yes." A screen illuminated behind him. He played the most widely circulated video. "Is this what you saw?" Emily watched. "No." The attorney paused. "You didn't see this?" "I saw that." "But you just said you asked if that's what I saw." He looked towards the screen. "Yes." "No." Another recording, different angle. "Is this what you saw?" "No." Another. "No." Another. "No." The attorney finally stopped. "Miss Emily, we have 14 separate recordings of this incident." "Yes." "Are you suggesting 14 cameras are wrong?" "No." "Then I'm having difficulty understanding your testimony." Emily looked at the screen. "I'm saying the cameras saw what they were pointed at." The room became quiet. The attorney stared at her. "What did you see?" Emily looked towards the jury. The woman in the red coat took 9 steps backwards. The attorney glanced at his notes. "What woman?" "The woman outside the pharmacy." He turned towards the screen. She wasn't there. She dropped a pharmacy bag after her 9th step. A prescription bottle rolled beneath the blue sedan, parked 23 feet from where the man fell. The attorney stopped writing. There was a man standing in the doorway, gray shirt, dark trousers. His right sleeve was approximately 2 inches higher than his left. Someone in the courtroom shifted. The delivery driver across the street had his left hand on his truck door. She paused. His right hand was bleeding. The attorney looked up. "What does any of this have to do with what happened?" Emily answered. "Everything." Then she told them what happened outside the frame. The tiny thing she had noticed while everyone else was pointing their camera towards the obvious thing. The thing 14 cameras recording had missed. The thing millions of people who had watched those recordings repeatedly could never have seen. When she finished, the attorney stood silently for several seconds. Then he asked, "Miss Emily, if your memory is as precise as you claim, why didn't you record the incident?" Emily looked genuinely confused. Why would I? For evidence. She looked towards the 14 frozen images displayed across the courtroom monitors. 14 recordings, 14 pieces of evidence, 14 different versions of the same moment. Then she looked back at the attorney. Because I was watching. She paused. And unlike everyone else, Emily looked down at her hands. I'm trying to forget. Nobody in that courtroom asked the other question, the one worth sitting with after the gavel. Not why Emily didn't record, why everyone else did. 11 strangers reached for a phone before they reached for the person on the pavement. Not because they were cruel, because watching had quietly become the thing they did instead of seeing. A phone lets you keep the during forever and lose the before and after completely. And somewhere along the way, that trade started to feel normal. Emily never made that trade. She kept all three. It cost her the one thing everybody else gets for free: the mercy of forgetting, which raises the real question of this episode. If you could keep everything, the before, the during, and after, exactly as it happened, with nothing lost and nothing edited out, would you reach for your cell phone? Or would you finally just watch? 14 cameras weren't lying. They simply couldn't show something they never recorded. Emily could. She had the before, the during, and the after. That's where I want to bring in my guest, David. He's an attorney because David works in a world where I saw it. Eventually has to encounter a much harder question. What can you prove? David,
Wow.
David is an attorney whose work gives him a very different view of what happens after crime, harm, and conflict occurs. His perspective includes the civil side of seeking remedies after someone has been harmed and the complicated space between what people experience, what witnesses believe they saw, what evidence can establish, and what the legal system is actually capable of doing about it. That makes David interesting for today's conversation because he works where our certainty eventually has to meet evidence. So after spending this episode talking about our addiction to witnessing, what we recorded, what we miss, what we remember, what we believe, we know because we have seen it, I want to talk to someone who deals with what happens after everyone says they know what happened. Welcome, David, to Whoyelling Now. Please tell us about yourself. Tell us everything.
All right, just briefly, my name is David Thiruselvam. I own a law firm. We're here in Pennsylvania. We represent almost exclusively victims of crime, and we bring cases on their behalf in the civil arena as opposed to the criminal arena where they usually end up. We have a different practice in the criminal area in the sense that our standards are different from the criminal area where it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Everybody knows that. And the standard, it's the preponderance, meaning is it more than 50% is another way of putting it, is it more likely than not, which is a much lower standard than the beyond a reasonable doubt. We have to prove certain things as far as how things happen, why they happen, who's responsible. That's the biggest thing. Who's responsible for why they happened? How many times have these kind of things occurred on your premises or around you that you had enough notice that these things are likely to continue? I'm asking people to come on this property and buy my, wares or do whatever, have business with me. I have a duty to protect them, which the law says that you do. And if you know that things are likely to happen or happen in the past, and you have knowledge or should have knowledge of them, you can't just bury your head in the sand and say, I know nothing, I see nothing, you can't do that.
Right.
But if you should have known is another standard, then you are tasked with taking certain appropriate measures to protect them, and that's primarily where our challenge is to make sure that those things are done. Now, the easy target obviously is the perpetrator, however, and this probably won't come as a surprise to many of your viewers, people that go around shooting, stabbing, raping people usually don't have a pot, in a bank or a home, right? So, and are not likely to make our client whole. However, there are a whole lot of things that enable this person to be able to do their bad deeds. For example, being able to come on an area where they know they can likely get away with it, or where there's likely to be no protection, or there's likely to be nobody that's going to report things, that the victim is going to be more vulnerable. And they use those kind of arenas to be able to do what they do, either rob people. Let me give you an example of what most people may not think.
Mm-hmm.
Gas stations. You go there, you pump gas, you may get a piece of chewing gum or whatever, and you leave. You pay and you leave.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, the bad guys have gotten pretty sophisticated in the sense, what? Why am I going to go out and try and jimmy a lock on a car and try to steal the car that way?
Right.
Here I got a guy, he's gassing up the car for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the keys to the car, right? I just got to go and take it from him. It's already made for me to go, right? Yes. And the thing is, it has risen in a very dramatic way, these kind of crimes, to where certainly in Philadelphia I'm speaking about. I know there's a lot of them in Florida as well, because a friend of mine down there, he handles the same kind of cases. But we task the gas stations. Now there are security measures that they can take. Very lower level would be things like having cameras there and things like that. Mm-hmm. On more dangerous areas, like we have quite a few in Philadelphia, there are security guards that are specifically that specifically work for gas stations, because they kind of know the things that happen. And it's dramatic, the kind of crime that happens after they hire these people and when they don't,
Okay.
So we've literally had this one recently where they had problems at the gas station. They hired a security guard company. The problems obviously stopped. So they fired the security guard company. Why are we paying you? There's no more problems. A week later, somebody got shot and killed on their property.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's just one example where maybe in the past, you certainly wouldn't consider a gas station to be a venue for holdups and things like that. But, society is changing. Another way society has changed, maybe about 8-10 years ago, a company decided to make these guns, and they decided to put them in little parts and sell them as parts. And they didn't have any nomenclature on them, no number on them. And they came to be called ghost guns. Yes. Because there's no tracing them. And this company, anybody could go ahead and buy this gun. For example, if you live in most cities, you got to be of a certain age. You got to show that you don't have any, crimes on your record and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then you usually have a 2-day wait period if you want to buy a handgun or rifle or whatever. And that's the process. Here you can circumvent the process by just applying and calling to these people and saying and making an order. They don't know how old you are. They don't know who you're buying for. They don't know your prison record or anything like that. And so these guns have proliferated in cities. And a lot of juveniles have gotten a hold of these guns. Now you're seeing crimes committed by people who would not have had access to handguns and things like that, but now they do. And this company was getting away with it for a long time. And eventually, they started on the first Trump administration. The Biden administration put a stop to it, said, no, you've got to put these nomenclatures, you got to put trace numbers on them so we can trace what gun does what and things like that. And that, they got a whole lot of feedback from that, negative feedback, because, say, oh, it's infringing on, but it was just ability to, trace these guns. Well, the cities started suing. Cities started coming under such a burden with all these juveniles going out and shooting people, and people that weren't supposed to have guns are now going out. Everybody's got a gun now. It just spiked. The death rate spiked, and I'm speaking specifically of Philadelphia, but it went across the whole country, and a lot of mayors started suing this manufacturer. On behalf of the crime that's been inflicted on the cities, and they were winning and they were settling and things like that. And our firm became the first firm that actually sued that company on behalf of individual families whose members have been killed because of these ghost guns. We had one where a 14-year-old got killed by another 14-year-old. Put 10 bullets in him. Another one, a 21-year-old girl who had been dating some man who was in his 40s, and he was very abusive. So she left him. She was staying with a girlfriend. The girlfriend would walk her to the subway station every day. One day, the girlfriend just let her go by herself. The guy was waiting for that, and he put 10 bullets in her and killed her. So on behalf of these families, we actually sued the company, and I'm happy to say they're bankrupt. They couldn't pay their
Good job.
They couldn't pay their lawyers anymore, and we're going after to see what kind of assets they have, and going after him personally. He's on the run now. So these are some of the things that are different today or in more recent times than would have happened, like, say, if you're growing up like 15, 20 years ago or longer. The world is just, the landscape has changed. We have victims of crime that they get injured in ways that we didn't anticipate them getting injured previously. And so that's evolved our practice, that's evolved in which we bring these cases and everything like that. But one thing hasn't changed: the physical, the mental, the emotional pain that these people go through. That remains the same, throughout, from the time whenever victims of crime have always suffered. The only thing is now we try and bring them some other remedy besides being able to go to court and with testifying and putting the evildoer away, the wrongdoer away. Now we're able to maybe get them some kind of funds and things like that allow them to go on about their lives. And everybody is different. We've had a case, 2 14-year-old girls that got raped at a mall in broad daylight by the same guy a month apart. This guy, the mall was aware of him and his hijinks and his craziness, and he just was romping around doing all these things. He got convicted of raping 10 girls. And he liked them really young because he wanted to take their virginity, is what he said. And these are 2 girls, 14-year-olds now. A woman going through something as horrifying as rape is bad enough, but 14-year-old, it just crushes them, They couldn't sit in a classroom anymore. They couldn't be surrounded by people anymore. They couldn't really pay attention and concentration and everything like that, So we had to take that into consideration when we were pursuing. We sued the mall, we sued the security company that was supposed to protect, because like I said, this is broad daylight when this happened. We also had, as part of the settlement, that they had to put cameras in these areas where the mall wasn't patrolling, that these guys knew that they could drag them off into.
In this case, no video evidence to help you.
No, and the strange thing is they had video cameras. Nobody was monitoring the video camera, even though they said they were. It was pointed in the directions of where they should have been able to see them take the girls and take it out of, So yes, in that sense, no, there's no video cameras. A lot of times companies, some of these gas stations I mentioned, some other places, they'll have video cameras, but nothing's being recorded. They're not even working, And sometimes, of course, if you don't get a report of it until too late, the video cameras roll over themselves, and then you just don't have access to that camera, that view at all. Sometimes they don't want you to get a view of it, because it just perfectly captures everything.
Because they're liable, right? And this is where like a witness becomes really important. Even the victim themselves witnessing on their behalf, but also any other person that may witness a crime becomes more important, because you can't rely on video evidence.
Sure. There is, sometimes they try and get tricky. We had another situation where these young girls, there was a bar, a venue that used to bring a lot of bands, local bands come and play. And of course, their followers would come in there and it increased the bar's business. These 2 young ladies, 18 and 21, they went over there to this particular venue they followed a band that went in there. And they were allowed to go in, even though the one was 18 years old. And they're sitting there and they're talking to the bartenders. The bartenders spiked their drinks, the bartenders did, and then took them up to the third floor and had sex with them. And these were young ladies. They testified they could not move. They had no control of their limbs and things like that. And so they put them on blast. There's a Watch Out Philly, a certain site you could go to, like a lot of ladies go to because they warn each other, somebody doing strange things on 13th Street or whatever,
Right.
Put them on blast, and they started getting all these responses. Oh my God, that happened to me. Oh, well, remember I took a drink and I could hardly move. My friends came and got me. Things. One was a police officer, a woman.
Oh my Lord.
But she said her friends came and got her before anything happened past that. But she said I was unable to, basically move after I took that drink, and she now knows what happened or what could have happened, But so anyway, bar got shut down, and we got the young ladies nice settlement for them to at least, help them with their recovery, help them with their future, because their lives were ruined. They had a pact. They went to visit somebody in California. They were going to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge together. And then one was late or didn't show up. And because of that, they had a falling out because one broke the pact and things like that. So it manifests itself in so many horrible ways, So we do what we can, and, at least they got enough to attend therapy, to get the kind of help that they need, to have some kind of treatment. Maybe because of their limited ability to, take certain jobs and things like that, they're able to buy a house, stuff like that, with some of the, the recovery that we get for them. Okay. So that's primarily the cases we handle, victims of crime. Some very, very, very strange ones, as you can imagine, that we have. And some of the more common ones, somebody gets shot in a bar, in a nightclub or strip club and things like that. Those are some of the more common ones that have happened all along. But we get some pretty strange ones. We had a man that got insulted by the girl he was with in a motel room, and he walked across the street and he went to the gas station, got a coffee cup, and asked to buy $1 worth of gas in the coffee cup. They sold it to him. And then he fills it up, it spills over, he goes back in and he asks for some matches, and the lady gives it to him. Wow. And he goes back, he pours on the woman, lights her on fire, and she burned to death. The hotel was destroyed, she burned to death and things like that. She left behind 4 children between the ages of 19 and 26, and they obviously devastated. And we fought long and hard on that one, but we were able to get him some measure of justice.
Wow, what a story. A real life story, unlike, what we fill our brains with all day scrolling. Let me ask you something. Do you find with the I guess the increase in so many people being on social media, you see all types of crimes, right? But most people aren't looking at the civil side of it. Right.
No, they're not.
Most people don't even understand that they could bring a case after they've been harmed.
Correct. Most people don't. I would say 95% people don't even know that this exists. Increasingly, we've actually approached some of these, the victim services people, that are there for these people to help them in their, go to court and this and that and everything, coordinate, maybe get some kind of state-sponsored a therapy for them and things like that. They do these things. We've informed them. They had no idea. So we've told them of the existence of these kind of things so we can inform their clients and say, hey, listen, you may have this option or that option. And as a result, we've actually been able to help more people because they've been aware of that now. And that's been very helpful. Yes.
Do you find that after a victim goes through the criminal process and they may exit it, right, as a good deal do, and they didn't get the comfort or the judgment they were looking for, right? So they get disheartened, and then they don't even think of a civil possibility, right? And the attorney they have probably didn't even tell them, or the prosecutor, that there's a civil alternative.
Right. The prosecutors would never tell them. For some reason, we haven't had the best cooperation with prosecutors, only because I think they think that what we do is going to interfere in their case. And far from it, because it benefits the civil side if they get convicted on the criminal side. So we want to help them, if anything else. Matter of fact, if I have a client with the prosecutor cannot get a hold of and come to court, I let the prosecutor let me know. I will encourage my client. You need to go to court. If you don't just look at the civil side where you may get, some money. You got to go prosecute this because that helps your side. So yes, if anything, we help the prosecution, and we rarely, if ever, put a case in suit until that criminal prosecution is done, because we don't want to have it interfere in we don't want some criminal defense attorney using the complaint against the witness. So
Right.
typically, we don't do that. But it's interesting. When in your question, would they get fed up? No, if anything, it spurs them even more. It's like, oh my God, I didn't get justice in this scenario. What can you do for me? We've had a case where a guy shot another man in the face, completely innocent. This man was carjacking the drug dealer. That's how bad this dude was. He was carjacking the drug dealer when my client happened to come up on the scene, and he shot him in the face with the .357 that mushroomed out and entered into his body, and it came out 5 years later. It came out through his neck, but his entire face was gone. I mean, plastic surgery does wonders. It really did a lot. He couldn't hear out of 1 year. They had to wire it out, from 1 year to the other year. He couldn't close his eyelid. He had to have gold bar under his eyelid to be able to close. It was horrible. And 5 different law firms turned him down. They said, listen, we can't do nothing for you. We took on the case. We did some investigation, and the criminal prosecution, the guy got off.
Wow.
He got off. And civilly, though, we were able to get our guy seven figures, over $1 million. Yeah.
Wow. Well, who did you go after in the civil case?
Well,
because it's not like criminals on criminals.
No. No matter how big a drug dealer was, he didn't have that kind of money on it. But what happened was our guy was a single dad. He lived in this apartment. And he was going out to get his son some pizza. And that's where he came down the front steps, and that's where the shooting happened. And what happened was we found out that the drug dealer was living and operating out of the building illegally,
Oh, okay.
And the building claimed he did not live there. So we knew they were going to do that. So we filmed him using a key card to get in the building. We had his residence sticker on his car that was in the garage, so they couldn't deny any of those things. So we were able to, get a 7-figure recovery from that.
Wonderful, because my God, such injury changes your entire life and your family. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, some of the injuries that you have to live with, we've had 2, and interestingly enough, we got somebody coming in today to sign up. There'll be a 3rd person that got shot in the face. That's just a whole different level of, because you're always going to have a memory from that.
Yeah.
There's going to be a scar that remains and things like that. And those kind of injuries, like that are bad. The kind of injuries that keep you from performing, like just walking steadily, things like that when you're at a younger age too. And then of course, besides the physical, the emotional trauma, especially of our rape victims, that's just something that's just so overwhelming that they'll carry that through life. There's always going to be some kind of thing that triggers it, or memory and things like that. So yes, we also have minors that we represent, and those can be very devastating. A lot of times, like people that are shot, they have children, minor children, and the money goes to the minors. Whatever we recover, it goes to the minors, and we get it put in usually a structure that allows it, not just where the last thing an 18-year-old needs is a pile of money, right, when they get 18. So we have it structured through the mother or the grandparent to where they get so much money, like for college for 4 years, and they get that for a down payment, and things like that. We can structure that over time, and the money grows because you're not getting it all at one time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we have that service that we provide through a company in the city as well.
So let me ask you something. Do you think as a whole, are we witnessing just too much violence, and are we getting desensitized to where even when the violence happened to us, we may not even think it's that big a deal?
I think, this ties into what you earlier said about the videos.
Mm-hmm.
And you're scrolling. You
Yeah.
see one person, crowd of kids beating on somebody. You see these, all for entertainment. You see these people on these carnival cruises, going crazy and just, going nuts. And it's entertaining in the sense that look at these people going crazy. Look at these people doing this. You're looking at it, you're viewing, you're getting the entertainment value of it. But at the same time, yes, I do believe people are getting desensitized to that, to where, and the negative thing it does for us that when you get desensitized, the value of it may not be as great, and we don't want that to happen. We want people to still be aghast and appalled at the injuries as they would have, had they not seen a bunch of videos with that kind of a thing.
Exactly. Because then it affects, right? I guess, and you tell me, it affects how much you can ask for in compensation, right? If the person, it wasn't that bad. That's my 500th video of, of a beat down I've seen. He should be okay with $10, right?
You know what? It's true, and that's why the community that the case happens in really matters. For example, if you happen to be in the suburbs in a really, really wealthy area, right? And you have a crime committed there, they might value it different than from the inner city if you have a crime committed there, What's the value of life there? What's the value of life here, Because it's a community that draws the jurors, right?
Yeah.
That's where the jury panel comes from. So we have to be able to say, sometimes we say, hey, listen, this person, if we're in like downtown Philadelphia, said this person's life is worth no less than, a banker out in the rich suburbs. It's worth no less, It's worth as much. The potential that this person had, what he could have become or whatever, this young man that got shot or killed or whatever, it's no less. We can't make that judgment and say, oh, he grew up on such and such street in this particular area. I know that area, okay? He wasn't going to do anything with his life. You cannot do that. We have to be able to make that connection,
Right. And then the people from the area probably expect a certain level of violence because that's where they're saying to themselves, I guess that's where you chose to live,
Correct.
that kind of thing.
Correct.
Wow.
And the defense even uses that in a way. It was like, well, okay, you got shot at a gas station. I mean, had you been there before? If it was so bad, why'd you keep going there? Well, what was your reason for it? Well, that's the only thing in my neighborhood, man. Where else am I supposed to go?
Exactly.
I just went to get a pack of cigarettes or a pack of this or whatever, and I got shot. I wasn't expecting that to happen. Well, why are you going there if it's so bad according to you?
Why didn't you expect it?
Exactly. All those kind of things, that we have to do, that they can put in people's minds. People go, yeah, why did they do that? One interesting thing I will tell you, when it comes to our rape cases, the harshest judges of our rape victims are other women. Now, they tell us that in law school. But until you go out there and see it, it's very interesting. I've had rape cases where in our firm, when we're evaluating it and things like that, it's funny. The women in our firm are always more harshly judging the victims than the men, No, I don't know if I believe her, blah, blah, blah. Why is she wearing that, She should know better than wear that and walk around the thing. I know that. I would never do that. Why should, and they're harsher judges.
Yes.
She shouldn't have to worry about that. That shouldn't be something that, but my mom told me, I don't go out looking like this if I'm expecting that kind of a thing. They bring that to the table.
Yes.
So we have to be cognizant of that when we're picking a jury and things like that, of who's going to be the harshest people. And you wouldn't think that.
Absolutely. I have no idea why in our society the hardest critics for women are usually women. I've tried. I probably will make it a topic once on Whoyelling. Now you give me feedback, my yellers, and let me know if that's a good topic. But you're absolutely right on that. It's also in the workplace. There are harsher supervisors also, and I'm not quite sure why.
Right.
So
that's true.
So here's a question that I was thinking about when you're talking about the civil side of things, right? Have you ever you're scrolling to social media and you see a video that you're like, that's a case. That person probably doesn't know it is. And you feel like you have to somehow contact them, reach out.
Yeah, we do come across that at times. And here's the thing, there are rules that govern, ethical rules that govern attorneys' behavior. Right? And you're not supposed to go solicit with individuals. You're not supposed to do that. What you are allowed to do is inform somebody of their rights. Say, do you realize that you may have a case here? Do you realize that, I don't know if anybody's told you this, you have a 2-year statute of limitations and you do have this, and if you don't do that, you may be giving it up. Now, because you inform that, they may come on with you, right? Or they may say, hey, listen, I got a lawyer, I'm going to go, I already got a lawyer. Okay, all right, but just take advantage of, whatever rights you have limited time for that. In that way, you're allowed to inform people, but not say, hey, I want you to, come over to my firm and things like that. You're not supposed to do that.
So what is the limitation years for like most rape victims? Did this change from state to state? Is there a federal guideline?
It varies widely from state to state. Typically, if you're an adult, traditionally you have 2 years to bring a case, okay? Now in rape, a lot of states have increased that, okay? And then they have a different standards for minors that are exploited by adults. Okay? They have a different, because minors don't know that they can do anything about it, right? So they have a different window for them to be able to bring a case very often. Now that, like I said, that varies from state to state. So yes, each state, it matters greatly. What kind of a window they have, what opportunity. Some states have gotten away with windows and said, if you're a minor when it happened, you're free to bring it when you're 50 years old, 60 years old, things like that, Obviously, it makes it harder to prove your point at that age, So yes, that's true. You do have a limited opportunity to bring cases.
For your civil rape cases, how often are witnesses used? Or sometimes you just don't have any witness besides the victim and of course the perpetrator.
A lot of times we don't have witnesses. A lot of times we just have the victim, especially in rapes as opposed to shootings. When you think about rapes, they're generally taken in mind of the rapist generally wants to take that person to a place where there's nobody around,
Right.
So as opposed to a shooting where they may just pull out the gun and start shooting, right? They may not have as much concern about that. But typically in rape cases, you have that situation where they're usually dragged to an area or, happen to come upon them in an area where there's nobody else around, which makes, and there's so much burden then on the victim, right?
Yeah.
When did you report it? Why'd you wait so long? Why didn't you go right away? You got a phone on you, why don't you call 911? And for example, in the one with the 14-year-olds, they didn't tell anybody for years.
Oh.
What happened is that he raped so many, one girl finally came forward and then they put it on the news. Guess what? Then the other girls see that he came forward and he's still doing this. That's when it started coming out. That's when one of our girls felt okay enough to tell her therapist. And the therapist says, listen, I got to report this. That's how that came about, So it's a burden that's put upon, especially rape victims, and very rarely is there corroboration. Their own actions after the event are what's supposed to be used as corroboration. And very often, all these experts will tell you, it's very normal for them, especially an underage victim, not to go right away and report it because they think, what did I do wrong? I'm to blame. Nobody's going to believe me. Or this person is very popular, or this, that, and everything is an adult, and I'm so and so. Or very often, it's uncle so and so, a relative, right?
Yes, very often.
Nobody won't believe me, and yeah, you have those a lot of those. You have a lot of those, a surprising number of those, and they don't report for those reasons, and that's held against them.
So I'm going to switch gears to something I've noticed. I've seen, those 30 seconds videos on social media, and it's elder abuse. right? For whatever reason. I know some elders are difficult to get along with, right? As we age, we get ornery, right? But I have noticed, elder abuse. Who would you go after in those cases? In civil, would you go after the nursing home?
Yes.
Or what? Mm-hmm.
It would be usually after the company of the the employee that was supposed to take care of them. If it's a nursing home, if it's a home health aide that's supposed to come over there, and you hear a lot of these horror stories. These home health aides, they come over there and they just they paid very little. They just taking a check, and somebody's ornery with them, which elderly people in a certain situation might be ornery, and they don't want to hear it, and they start abusing them. You hear that quite a lot, actually.
Right.
And they're supposed to be monitoring and making sure that they're, number one, through their hiring, that they're not hiring people like this. Number two, through their training, they're trying to make sure that they don't do this. And three is, are you monitoring how they're doing their job? Are you checking up and making sure that, hey, everything's going smoothly, as opposed to just taking their word when they come back? So yes, those would be areas where that would happen.
Then my favorite, where I find they turn these videos into like comedy, right? Where for me, I had so much respect for my teacher that I don't see anything funny in it. It's, student on teacher abuse, right? Where it's obviously, they're beating up on the teacher, right? And somehow they'll think it's funny. And I'm like, that's not funny.
No.
Yeah.
It's not. We see less of those in our particular cases. Teacher, they do have a lot of, it's a hard job anyway. And yeah, sometimes you have students that are just completely out of control, and they do. You've seen these videos where they do that. We haven't really had a case for that. And then what do you do? Sue the child or the child's parents?
Right.
It's really, we've had situations where we've gone after minors, okay? Those cases, we were able to show that the parents had a certain duty to control the minors. Now, if they're in school, it's hard to say the parents should have controlled them, right? But we've had situations where these four, individuals that were from, homes, some higher middle class, some wealthy, right? They decided, out in the suburbs, they decided, hey, why don't we become drug dealers? So they stole one of the dads. They sneaked out one of his guns, two of his guns, and they went out there. And eventually, when it's all over, they shot this kid, right? Shot and killed him. So yeah, and it was like 1 a.m. when this happened. It's past. The city has a curfew for kids. The city also says that area, if you're driving and you're at a certain age, you got to have an adult in the car. Right? They were able to get the car without doing that. They were able to sneak those guns out of the parents' home. So what we do is sue the parents for negligence. We're able to collect on the homeowners insurance. That's what we do.
Wow.
And that's, we've had actually a couple of those cases, but once in a while we get we had a terrorism case actually once.
Really?
This is one we had. It was domestic terrorism. There was a police officer. It was in West Philadelphia, and he was sitting in his car. It was late at night, and this man in full white Muslim garb, he has a gun in his hand, and it's shown on video. Runs towards the police officer, just shooting, blam 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 blam. To the last shot was like he was inside the window, shooting him. He shot him 6 times. The police, and turned around. The police officer managed to still get his gun out and shoot the guy in the tail, right? Shoot the rear end. But the police officer, I remember, he said that when he opened the door, he heard the strange sound. And it was like a splash. And what it was his own blood hitting the ground. It was that much blood had pooled up, One of the bullets broke the bone in his arm. And it was just filling up with blood. He lived.
Wow.
He lived. And the strange thing is that the police officers, he got shot in the middle of the street. What are you going to do? The guy claimed I was doing this for ISIS. FBI was involved and all that other stuff. And, I don't really think much about it. And then one of the police officer's friends said, can you help this guy out? I'm like, the guy got shot in the middle of the street, you know, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
So we went and talked to him, and he came over and he had a discussion with us, and we found out that the gun that was used by the ISIS shooter, the gun belonged to another police officer.
Whoa.
That police officer said, you know what, I went out to see this girl at the bar. I don't know if he's showing off or whatever, but then he goes home, he's drunk, he goes home, wakes up, the gun's gone. Right? So we got his homeowners. Then I did something that a lot of my friends think I'm crazy, but we sued the mosque for radicalizing him.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the unfortunate thing in that is that you've got to have people be testifying against him, right?
Need that witness.
Yeah, I checked with the FBI, and the FBI said, yes, they are bad guys. You know, they had somebody planted at that time. They had somebody planted in there. And they let me talk to that witness, and the witness, you know, the witness went ahead and confirmed everything, but they said that I can't testify, you know. We couldn't get anybody to testify. Everybody was scared to death of these guys. So finally, I got a call from a woman. She said, I'm a police officer. She said, my son is in jail and his cellmate is the shooter and he's talking. So I said, that's great. So I called up the cellmate, her son, and he told me everything I needed to hear. And I said, okay, I'm gonna bring you down, get a protective order, and we're gonna take your deposition. I was all excited. He comes down, he says, Dave, there's a Muslim behind every corner in this jail. He said, I'm going to get killed, man. I can't do this.
Oh my God.
So I couldn't, and honestly, have any kind of enforced or whatever. So we had to let that portion of it go. But yeah, that was going to be a really, really, really big case if that had gone through. If I had one person to come through and do that, So yeah, that's.
Dave, how important would you say for what you do is having a really good witness?
Well, the witness, especially an independent witness, a person that doesn't have skin in the game, is key. Is key to cementing your case. To be able to contradict some of the excuses that the defense may have. They may say, oh, we had a security guard there that night, I can't get a hold of him. And the witness goes, there wasn't a security guard around at all. I don't know what they're talking about. So those kind of things that can contradict and stuff like that. And, the video cameras do help secure things. They have one story. Sometimes they withhold part of the video too. We've had that happen a couple of times, But the police get a hold of the video and we get it through the police, we get the video. And that's how we go ahead and we confirm everything. Yeah.
That's your primary way? Have you ever been able to get videos that, the police didn't have, or you got it first before the police and didn't have to share it with the police?
We get that sometimes from people around the area, as you pointed out, use their phones as cameras, right? Yeah. And we've had people say, hey man, so-and-so, I saw this on so-and-so, and they connect with us, and now we got a video that nobody else knows about, right? And we're able to use that, in that way. That happens a few times. The video is taken a few times. Us being able to get a hold of the person and getting that video has been much harder, But yes, those cameras, as you mentioned in your initial talk, are out there. People are using them. Right. And yes, people pull them out now. It's not I think when you said, should I video this or should I not? I don't think that thought process exists anymore. I think there's an automatic reach for the video camera to pull it out and start videoing. It's just an automatic anymore, that people do that. And it's a shame, you've seen some situations where you're like, put the camera down and go help this person, You've seen some situations where they could do that. But it's a reflection on us as society. They would much rather record that than help the person in need.
Right. We're addicted to witnessing, and we're not even sure what we're witnessing anymore, right? And what I notice is that because we have gotten this addiction to view more videos and think we're witnessing someone's life for real, or whatever happens, this is how it happened, then of course I saw what I saw, right? And you can't change how I saw. So they come up with their own judgment and the punishment that they want to to happen because of what they saw, only to get disappointed when it goes to the criminal, and sometimes get disappointed because there's nothing civil that can be done either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What would you say to those, because it's a huge amount, it's millions of people that are following what I just said. They view it, I saw this, and I can't understand why this did not happen. What would you say to those folks?
Well, yeah, I think it's the world we live in now. What do you do? I mean, look, I don't want to say anything political, but you saw what happened J5, right? And January 6th, and people say it never happened. I'm watching it. I'm looking at the video right now. What do you
see
mean?
it now?
No, he didn't get beat on the head. Well, look at him pounding on his head. No, he didn't get sprayed in his face. Well, look at it happen. You have people that deny that, but the video captures what the video captures. So yeah, you're right. People are going to deny, people are going to deny. You just never thought it would have as much of an effect and as, I don't want to say credibility, but as much backing as it has, those denials, those obvious denials of the truth.
Yes.
We have that. And like I said, this is who we are as a society now, Yeah. Now, in the civil context, if somebody tried to deny something that's very obvious, right? And I can show it on video, I use that against them, okay? Then I say, we're not talking about somebody that just made a mistake or something like that, we actually pay for it. We're talking about a person that very well might do it again, because look, they're not even acknowledging this mistake. Who's to say they won't go out and do it again?
Right.
They're saying, I didn't do anything wrong. Okay, so something's going to happen again. The only way it's not going to happen again is if you make them pay for it.
Right.
That's the only way so yeah, they can try that if they want, but we'll use that against them.
Do you use the social commentary and the social movement, because people believe that they can socially ostracize someone, and that's a way of punishing them, right? And sometimes there's a groundswell based on what is happening. Does that groundswell help a civil case? Or sometimes
not necessarily. Not necessarily. Only thing is, ultimately, in court, you're limited to what you can bring in based on the rules of evidence. General opinions, popular opinions, changing tides. Only thing those are good for is when you're selecting your jury. Is this person going to subscribe to that kind of thought? Is this person likely going to believe that kind of a thing, So that's when it becomes important. But as far as what gets in front, as far as evidence, those things are unlikely to get in front of a jury.
And that's really what my listeners want to hear. Because again, I saw it. Well, here is the truth. What you saw may not be admissible in court, right? And that's, so the people making the decision are not viewing what you saw. Right. And sometimes that's really difficult for, a huge group of people to accept. And it's one of the reasons that I keep saying you may be addicted to watching all these things, but there's not much that can be done about it, either criminal or civil, based on what is entered into evidence. And some people just do not understand that process at all. Okay. They're like, what are you talking about? We saw it in the Me Too movement. Right. A lot of people are saying this happened, but then nothing really happened. Right. You see it over and over again. You in California, you watch the beating of Robert DeSitt, and you're like, that's on video. We all saw it. We're screaming, punish somebody, right? And then it goes through the court system. You're like, what happened, right? And that's really where our listeners are going. Okay, I don't understand. Help me understand what has happened here. Even in a civil case, it's like will Rodney King get something? You know what I mean, for what he suffered, right? So anything you can do to help break it down simple for my audience for me, please go ahead.
Well, no, what you brought up earlier, I think goes with the Rodney King situation. That happened in 1991. I think we were a different society then, right? Back then, people would believe cops, and cops knew that people would believe them regardless of anything. That's why they beat people all the time and things like that. And they knew they were, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say they were all the time. Certain police officers would just do it. Yeah, they would do it, and they did it with impunity. And nobody's going to believe this person over me. Hey, they tripped and fell. Or, hey, I was fighting them off. Or, they attacked me, and that's why I had to do what I had to do. Right. And they were routinely believed. Right. And, then came cell phones. Then came video cameras. And that was the very first time they had to encounter that. And even then, people didn't want to believe that these cops did something wrong. And what the defense attorneys were able to use was, you know what, you didn't see what's not on the camera. You didn't see what's not on the film. That's the only way they could get around it. They only showed you this part right here. You didn't see when he was acting like a maniac and doing this, that, and everything else and all that. But what comes down to is, even if he did, it didn't require you to keep beating him when he was down on the ground and helpless and things like that. You got 20 people standing around there, right? Exactly. Now, you shift over to, when you got somebody kneeling on somebody's neck, right, and killing them up in Minnesota. Yes. Now people are wanting to believe, okay, the cops, because they've seen so many of it, I've heard so many of it. There's protests about it. You got Kaepernick, you got all these people that are, forcing the light to be shown on it. And now people, cops will do that. Yeah, I believe they'll do that. You have societies shifted in that regard, right? To where they're willing to accept. So that goes back to one of your earlier points that, what the social movement and things like that, and, how people generally tend to believe or whatever. I think society's moved away from cops are always the good guys, They may be for the most part. I've actually represented police officers, in my cases. So, but, when you got caught on film, the only thing they have is, well, you didn't see this that happened off the camera. That's what they're left with. So.
Yeah, you only get what's in the frame. And that's where Emily comes in, right? She's like, well, actually, I wasn't required. I watched everything that happened, right? That's why I wrote about Emily, because I tend to not record a lot. I just, I'm from a different generation where I want to witness things with my eyeballs, right? And sometimes it is absolutely true. Everyone, you hear a bang over here and everyone's attention go over there, right? Because, you see somebody fall there. But usually that's not even where the shooter is. It's usually over here, right? Yeah. And if you just turned your head, you probably would have seen something way more important than the person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Correct. And just like you said, everyone, they grab the phone and they forget they're now seeing a box, right? Where you're no longer seeing all of this that we have. Right. And I wanted to bring some attention to that sometimes you can actually just hold your phone to the side like this and still record something and use the rest of your eyes to actually be a true witness.
True. The only thing with that is when an opposite attorney opposite to your position or the person that you're presenting, they know they can't take apart a video for the most part, right? For the most part, the video shows what the video shows, right? They can, however, come after you as an individual. Are you sure you're watching? Are you sure? How much did you have to drink right before this? Isn't it true that you're friends with this person, that you really want it to be this way, right? You mean another video showed it, but you saw it, and then the video, they can come at you in different ways because you're a human being, right? Yes. Video doesn't think, video just shows. You know what I'm saying? Video is not susceptible to opinions. Video is not susceptible to, I like this thing, I don't like this thing. It's going to show what it shows, So that's why you're more open to more attack, as a person as opposed to a video.
Very good point. Very good point. So you want to probably try to do both.
Yes.
Did you hear that, lady?
I saw it, and here's the proof. That's true.
Right. And if you can't get somebody else to take notes, right, at the same time. So, yes. So thank you so much for being with us today. Is there please tell us the name of your firm again. And if there's one last thing you want to leave with our visitor, please share it.
Sure. We're the Victim Recovery Law Center. We represent victims of crime in civil cases. Wherever you may be located, there's probably a local person that does the same thing, I should say this probably because there's not that many attorneys that do this. If you contact us, we can probably find somebody. If we can't do it, we can probably find somebody closer to your location that does. There is an organization called the National Crime Victim Bar Association that has attorneys that do what I do all over the country. And so you might be able to find somebody through them as well. I hope we're one of those things that I hope you never need my services. I really do, but in the unfortunate sense that you do, we're here for you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, David. I can't tell you just how much I appreciate talking to you. I had like a bunch of questions that I thought was going to be important, and as usual, nope, it was just better to have a great conversation with you.
No, I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on here. All the best to you.
Not a problem, not a problem.
My dearest listeners, we started this episode certain I saw what I saw. But perhaps certainty becomes a little harder when we remember something uncomfortable. We don't even possess a complete records of ourselves. There are things I've done that I cannot remember. Words I've spoken that someone else may carry forever while I have no memory of saying them. And yet, I can watch 30 seconds of your life and somehow become certain that I understand you. So before I stand in judgment of everything you have forgotten, perhaps I should account for everything I've forgotten about me. This is a poem I call Until I Remember. Recalling my life through my own eyes is an inaccurate thing. There are things I have done that I cannot recall doing, words I have spoken that have left no witness inside of me, places I have been that disappeared without asking permission. Ask me what I did 10 years ago on an ordinary Tuesday. Place me on the witness stand, raise my hand, make me swear to tell the truth. Then ask, did you say this? Did you do that? Were you angry? Did you know? Did you mean it? Did you laugh? Did you walk away? And perhaps the most truthful answer I can give is, I don't remember. Yet, I have stood in judgment of you, certain of your intentions, certain of your character, certain that one moment I witnessed contained enough of your life for me to understand the whole of you. How strange. I cannot account for every hour of my own existence, yet I demand explanations for yours. I have forgotten my own words while preserving yours as evidence, excused myself with context while denying you yours, called my mistakes growth and yours character. So until I can recall every moment of my own life, every kindness, every cruelty, every lie, every truth, every wound I caused without noticing, every hand I should have held, every door I closed, every person who remembers a version of me, I no longer remember being. I shall be careful with judgment, because somewhere there may be a witness to something I have forgotten, someone who can say, I saw what you did, and I may look them straight in the eyes and truthfully say, I don't remember. So until I can remember all of me, I shall give you the mercy I hope my forgotten self will someday receive. A pass. Not because you are innocent, not because I am, but because I cannot demand a perfect accounting of your humanity while so much of my own is missing. My wonderful listeners, called my mistakes growth and yours character. Maybe that's another consequence of being addicted to witnessing. We have accumulated extraordinary amounts of evidence about everybody else while remaining remarkably incomplete witnesses to ourselves. And perhaps the answer isn't to stop looking. Maybe it's to become a little less certain that looking and knowing are the same thing. So, how do we get there? We started with social media. We wandered into a courtroom. We talked about evidence, memory, violence, justice, punishment, witnesses. And somewhere in there, you may have started wondering, Olga, weren't we talking about being addicted to witnessing? My dearest friends, yes, we still are. Because the courtroom was never the point. We are. What happens in that courtroom is simply one place where the consequences of what we are become impossible to ignore. We live in a time when almost anything can have an audience. Breakfast can have an audience. A birthday can have an audience. A proposal can have an audience. An argument can have an audience. A mistake can have an audience. A beating, a death can have an audience. And somewhere along the way, we stop merely living alongside one another. We start watching one another live. At first, maybe we just wanted to be seen. Look where I went. Look what I bought. Look who I am with. Look what I accomplished. Look what happened to me. Look at me. Witness me. And we did. We watched. Then something changed. The audience discovered its own power. Because once I witness you, I can also judge you. I can share you. I can freeze you at your worst moment. I can replay you, slow you down, zoom in, add a caption, tell everyone what I believe happened, and then invite millions of strangers to witness you with me. We created something extraordinary. Human beings who have never met can now witness the same event from thousands of miles away, that can expose things once hidden. It can force us to confront suffering we might otherwise have ignored. It can preserve evidence. It can give people a voice when nobody would have believed them before. That matters. But every human invention eventually asks something of the human using it. And witnessing is asking something of us. How much can we watch before watching changes us? How many acts of violence can we consume before violence becomes ordinary? How many strangers can we judge before judgment becomes entertainment? How many 30-second pieces of someone's life can we watch before we begin believing 30 seconds is enough to know a human being? How many times can we say, I saw what I saw, before we stop asking whether what we saw was everything there was to see? Think about Emily. Everyone else started recording when something happened. Emily had already seen what happened before. That's what's important. Because most recording don't begin at the beginning. They begin at the moment someone realizes I should record this. There is always a before. Sometimes the before changes nothing. Sometimes it changes everything. And then there's an after. But social media rarely demands the before, the during, and the after. It demands the moment that shocks us, the moment that angers us, the moment that confirms something we already believe, the moment worth sharing. And then we do something very human. We fill in what we didn't see. That's where the witnessing becomes dangerous. Not because our eyes necessarily lied to us, but because we asked our eyes to tell us something they never saw. And perhaps that's why I wanted to end today with "Until I Remember Me." Because after spending an entire episode questioning what we know about everybody else, eventually I have to turn the camera around. How complete is my record of me? I don't remember every conversations I've had. I don't remember every cruel thing I've said. I don't remember every kindness either. There are entire days of my own life that are simply gone. Yet somehow I can watch a stranger for 45 seconds and decide who they are. Think about the arrogance of that. I don't possess enough evidence to reconstruct my own life, but somehow I believe I possess enough evidence to judge yours. And social media gives me something my imperfect memory cannot: receipts. There you are, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a photograph, a comment, a joke, an argument, mistake, a version of you that perhaps you don't even remember being. And now someone else remembers it for you. Maybe that's another part of our addiction. We aren't simply witnessing the present anymore. We are building permanent witnesses to one another's past. And I don't know if human beings have fully considered what that means. Because human beings change. Human beings forget. Human beings misunderstand. Human beings grow. Human beings lie. Human beings remember things incorrectly. Human beings can sincerely tell the truth and still be wrong. A camera can record something accurately and still miss what happened. And millions of witnesses can watch the exact same thing and still disagree about what they witnessed. So maybe the lesson isn't don't believe your eyes. And it certainly isn't ignore what you witness. No. If you see suffering, see it. If you see injustice, don't look away simply because looking makes you uncomfortable. If somebody needs a witness, be one. But perhaps we need to rediscover the humility that should come with witnessing. The ability to say, I saw this, instead of automatically saying, therefore I know everything. Those are not the same sentences. Maybe being a witness should create responsibility before it creates certainty. Responsibility to look longer. Responsibility to ask what came before. Responsibility to consider what came after. Responsibility to distinguish what we actually saw from what we concluded. And perhaps responsibility to remember that the person on the other side of that screen is living an entire life outside the frame. Season 6 keeps asking one question: what are we becoming? Today, I don't know that the answer is simply that we're becoming addicted to social media. That seems too easy. I think we're becoming addicted to witnessing, to seeing, to being seen, to knowing, to believing we know, to judging what we have seen, to having other people agree with what we think we saw, and sometimes even to the emotional satisfaction of watching punishment arrive afterwards. But here's the strange thing about addiction. Eventually, what once shocked you isn't enough. You need more. Another video, another scandal, another fight, another person exposed, another person falling, another thing to witness. Scroll, watch, judge, share, scroll. Until one day, we might have to ask ourselves, after witnessing everybody else for so long, when did we stop witnessing ourselves? I am Olga Foreign. This is Whoyelling Now, and this has been Addicted to Witnessing. Until next time, before you decide what you know, ask yourself what you didn't see. See you in the next episode. Share, subscribe, tell a friend.